Whenever we're told to surrender, the first two questions that our mind comes up with are, why should I surrender? And even if I want to, how do I do it? That's what we're going to be discussing here today. We'll also discuss the difference between thinking and overthinking, and the difference between quantum and digital mind, so that you know the difference and you can consciously choose which mind do you choose to create your reality with. So that's the plan. And let's start with surrender. And at the very beginning of my spiritual journey, that was a huge problem. That was a really big issue because whenever I was facing some real struggle or some circumstances um, in which I was expected to show faith, trust, surrender, patience, I found myself, to a certain extent, faking surrender, faking trust, faking patience. And I hope some of you will resonate with this feeling. You do know deep inside whether you're actually surrendering or you're kind of keeping one eye open, controlling, like I'm pretending like I'm surrendering. Is the universe seeing? Is the God like delivering already? So that's what I was doing at the beginning of my spiritual journey. I was like keeping an eye on God, controlling if He's seeing my good behavior and delivering. And that technique was good enough for me to progress within the teaching or the religion that I was in at the time. That behavior was good enough to actually learn and gain certain experiences, because like results were coming. Actually, things that I was asking for were coming, and the situations that I was dealing with were being resolved. So um, I felt like, okay, I'm doing it, but that feeling, you know, some of you will resonate with that feeling when you do know deep inside that this is not actual surrender. I know it. Yeah, maybe on outside, maybe it looks because I'm waiting longer than everyone else, so that probably looks like patience. But in fact, the issue when I'm being called impatient, I was being called impatient by my teacher, and he would say, "You're impatient. You should be patient." To me, that sounded like do something that you cannot do. Simply, like the definition of impatience is inability to be patient. So he's telling me that I'm impatient and I should just be patient. And that whole idea of like first believing in miracle in order to see it and all that stuff, we see a lot of it in every teaching, in every religion. They tell us to just do it, just love, just have faith, just hope, just. And my problem with that was that I was still fully aware that I am partially faking and not actually surrendering. And the solution that I was trying to find that to resolve that dilemma by like talking to each teacher that I ever had, asking them like in the moment of like that stress, why all this knowledge that I have, all this wisdom that we discuss in our like calm and peaceful days, I feel like I know so much, but in the moment of stress, in the moment of like real situation where I'm facing some real obstacle in life, I become stupid. When I'm angry, for example, I get angry, I get stupid, and in that moment, I forget everything I know. I forget like all that wisdom, all that wonderful knowledge, and it suddenly just stops making sense to me. All the stuff that at the peaceful time It makes sense, but at the moment of stress, it stops making sense. And I would approach my teachers asking them questions like, okay, if I'm surrendering, does it mean that I'm giving up my willpower? For example, I want this specific result in this situation, and you're telling me to surrender, so you're telling me to give up my wants and needs, give up my willpower here. And so that does it mean that someone else's willpower will affect? Why should I let go? Why should I give up my willpower? Why should I surrender? Let them surrender. Or, okay, it's God's willpower is going to decide. Mm. So if God's willpower is deciding, then how can I be sure that He's going to resolve the situation the way that I want? Or does my opinion not even matter here? If He's already decided everything and everything is predestined, and then what's my part here anyway? How can I know that He's going to do something that's good for me? He's going to do something that's good for me, God, because He loves you. Ah, okay, if He loves me. Okay, then if He loves me, then why did He allow that bad thing to happen to me in the first place? I hope you get where I'm heading with this, because that's the in the moment of stress, I was finding myself facing so many paradoxes. And because like all the religions and all the mystical teachings and esoteric teachings, they're all based on paradoxes. And I've realized that in the moment of stress, I am incapable of grasping a paradox. Incapable. I want explanation. It doesn't make sense. If God loves me, then why this is happening? Then if I give up my willpower, then like only His willpower matters, then my part. So many moments where it wasn't making sense to me, and I would find myself in like building these logical chains. And even if I'd be talking to like a teacher or anyone that I was receiving knowledge from, and I would be asking questions, and they were not able to give me a clear, like simple answer that would satisfy my agitated mind. None of those paradoxes were resolved. I was just told to trust, to let go, just trust that He loves me, to let go, to surrender, and none of it just made sense. So I faked. I faked patience, I faked trust and surrender, all those things, and I was getting somewhere. But still had that feeling of dissatisfaction when I came out of all the schools and teachings that I've been introduced to. I realized that what I was searching for was a very simple 1, 2, 3 step instruction on how to operate in the moment of stress. Because that's when I need God the most. Because in that moment, I wanted to make sense. Because I realized, yes, when I'm already at peace and when I'm comfortable and calm, we can go into all these theoretical discussions, and I understand everything, all the theory, all the books, I understand all of it when I'm peaceful. I can keep like several hour-long discussions on topics, and I feel so clever, smart, so wise. But why in the moment of stress, I become totally stupid? So I don't want something so complicated where one paradox is based on another paradox, then there is another paradox on top, and there is like whole bunch of like whole tree of paradoxes, none of which makes sense to me in the moment of stress. So my request was, I want to have a system which gives me like the essence, the essence from all those religions, teachings, and approaches, the dry algorithm. I want to understand the essence, how it works. I don't want to know all that theology. I just want the dry 1, 2, 3 essence, which would be simple and straightforward enough for me to use it in the moment of stress. That was my request. And when I formulated that question that way, I received the answer right away. I received the algorithm, the structure, the essence that lays behind each of those religions that I was introduced into. And that was like the key moment of my spiritual journey. From that moment, I started shifting. Actually, when I received this answer that I'm going to be discussing here, that's where I actually made that leap. Instead of just like growing, I was growing, expanding within each tradition, but I was expanding just horizontally in one plane. I was growing, getting more and more and more and more knowledge within that same layer of reality. But I was not able to shift to some new reality, because I was, even though things were happening and my wishes were coming true and like I was growing and so resolving stuff, but still situations were repeating over and over. I was finding myself dealing with similar circumstances, similar people, similar problems. So I was growing, but I was growing horizontally. I was not actually shifting, expanding, not going to the next level, until I received this answer to my question. And from that moment, my actual growth began, and I started actually expanding exponentially. I was like, actually resolved all the stuff of that layer, moved to new layer, like with new problems and new solutions. And actually, my world and my understanding of this reality started expanding with that simple solution that I received when I requested it finally. And that's what I call method. That's what the name of my channel, that's where name of my channel comes from, Irada's method, because I consider this discovery being the key element of all my work, because like that's the biggest discovery of my life so far. All the other stuff that I'm sharing here on this channel might be entertaining for a lot of people, but unless you have the solid, simple, and straightforward foundation for your spiritual work, most likely you will just keep expanding horizontally the same way I did expand in previous teachings and schools. I was just getting more and more and more of that information, knowledge, which all seemed very logical. It sounds perfectly logical, great, amazing, I like it, but I keep expanding horizontally only. I'm not shifting to the next level and not expanding unless my behavior changes in the moment of the most stress. That's the key element. If you're just studying everything I share here, but and you're so happy with all this information, but in the moments of stress in your life, dealing with people, situations, or discomfort of whatever kind you're facing, and in that moment you're still behaving the same way you did a year ago, it means you're not shifting. It means your head is just growing bigger in the same horizontal plane. So without this key understanding, all the rest of my knowledge shared on this channel is pretty much useless. The key is the system which I received to explain the behavior of our brain, and that's the idea of the Triune Brain, or the idea of the brain, which consists simply of three levels, three parts, let's say, the brain of a reptile, brain of a mammal, and brain of a human, neocortex. And this understanding of the reptile brain and how it operates, and the key element, key role of a reptile in this whole system, is what allowed me to shift. Because in this idea that I shared in the book, and I share in this video and more on this channel everywhere. The idea is that there is not much about this logic to believe in. It's like not so many paradoxes and to resolve within this logic of the three parts of the brain. That's what makes it easy to apply. In the moment of stress, you can just take it and use it. There is like no paradoxes really, and no unknowns. All this stuff has been discovered by scientists, neurophysiologists, psychologists. They've done their experiments, and all the proofs of their work can be found online if you're really interested to study how these three parts of the brain interact. All the scientific data can be found online, and this can give you the foundation of the factual nature of this system. And when you have that, there is not much left there to believe in. That was the key. When there is like so many unknowns, like I believe in God, I've never seen him, then I have to believe that he loves me, I don't have proof of that. Then I have to believe that he'll do it, I don't have proof of that. There's so many things I need to believe in, and that's what makes that system hard. I have to just trust so many things, and that's hard. Here, you just need to believe that these three parts exist in your brain. If you study that online, it gets easy for you to believe this, and if you start applying it, you see right away the results and how it works. So basically, what it's all about is these three parts of the brain. At the very bottom, there is the brain of a reptile, so reptilian part of the brain. That's the oldest part of our brain, which we share with all the reptiles on this planet. And its main function is to just ensure our survival of the body. And that function is like really primitive in the sense that even a snake can do that. But at the same time, it requires a lot of energy in order to provide for survival for this crazy person. So this task is primitive on one side, but pretty hard on another. So the reptile brain at the bottom. Then we have the limbic system, which is the brain of a mammal. That's the part of the brain that we share with all mammals. And that's the part responsible for feeling and emotion. And on top, we have that gray convoluted part, which is the youngest part of our human brain, called neocortex. And that's where lays the capacity for all our higher cognitive functions, and all our creativity and all that stuff is all related to the upper part of the brain. And now when we know that there's like these three parts of the brain, the key element here to consider is that the reptile is the one who is in charge of the power switch. This is the key element which makes this whole thing work. Because like, what energy are we talking about? Basically, like, let's say just the electrical charge that our body is generating. Body is generating some electricity, let's say. And this electricity is then collected through the body. All these electrical signals are collected and sent to the brain through the brainstem. And at the entrance to the brain sits the reptile, let's say like at the gate of the brain. And that electricity is needed for other parts of the brain, especially for neocortex to operate. We need electricity. Electricity must be supplied to neocortex for it to operate. And it's very energy consuming part of our brain. So our body does produce a lot of electricity, which is quite enough to power this powerful quantum computer that we have, That's the logic of quantum computer on top, very powerful, but it needs a lot of power supply and very, very, very specific conditions to operate. And then at the bottom, we have a simple digital computer. That's the animal part here. And the key is that this little reptile holds the switch, the distribution switch, deciding how this whole electricity, all this power supply, will be distributed among the body and the brain and all these parts. The reptile is the one who decides. That's the key. That's the key understanding. That's like the discovery that once I realized this connection, suddenly all the religions, all the mystical teachings, all of it just fell into place. It all just clicked and it started making sense right away. I wished someone had given me this simple explanation at the beginning of my journey, because that's when you see the logic, that's what all the religion, all the teachings or shamanic, mystical, whatever, that's what they do. They deal with the reptile, somehow trying to trick it or trying to convince it to open the switch to power the neocortex. And this is done in so many weird ways, like you're told to go do this physical work, to smell that stuff, to I don't know, repeat these mantras, listen to that sound, listen. And once I realized the connection, when it clicked, like that's exactly what they were doing to me. In each religion, they were just telling me, just do this, just like physical steps. Do some physical work, I don't know, take this chemical, smell, listen to that sound, smell this specific chemical, and all that combination all together, that's the result was calming the reptile. Why is that important? Because going back to these three parts, the reptile is the one responsible for body survival. And its operation is digital. It's in a sense very simple because it operates only in, like, it has only two modes of operation, like on, off. So it's 0 and 1. That's why we say that it's digital. Everything that it deals with has to fall into two categories. That's the only thing that reptile is able to deal with. In order to make any decision, it's judging everything, every signal that it's receiving is judging by this logic, whether it signifies death for the organism or survival. That's the only thing reptile cares for: survival, survival, survival. And it's constantly scanning all the signals from inside and outside in order to determine which mode must be activated now. If any signals from outside or inside the body tell the reptile that there is any kind of threat, external or internal threat, the reptile activates the danger mode. So danger, survival, danger, survival. So if it thinks there's death somewhere around, what it does, it takes all this energy that has been gathered throughout the body and came up to entrance to the brain to power this machine. But if the reptile thinks there's danger, what it does, it flips the switch and all this energy goes back down. It's being sent back down to the body, and in order to run from the danger, right? We need electricity for our muscles to work, for us to escape from the tiger. So if anything made reptile think there's danger, it sends all the received energy back to the body, and that's what creates issues, whatever, illnesses, traumas, in the body, because like if you're constantly sending energy back to the body, and if you're not releasing it, not actually running all the time, if you're not actually using that energy, then that energy builds up in your tissues, in your organs, in your muscles, body, or whatever, and it creates energetic buildup, physical buildup, which then causes, of course, physical, emotional, energetic problems. Call that. To the level of physical illness, that's like that. That's if you've been sending energy down for quite a long, it will manifest as something physical. Before that, it's emotional and energetic. So I hope you're following so far. We're getting to the notion of surrender in a bit. So, with this discovery, I actually was able to shift. Why? Because simple understanding that when you're under the effect of the reptile, higher cognitive functions are simply not available to you. That's all. That's all you need to understand. Any moment when you feel any kind of stress in the body or stress in your mind, you're trying to, there's this problem that is disturbing you inside or outside, you can be sure this means that the reptile is agitated. Reptile is in the state of war, in the state of like threat. There's danger, which means your higher cognitive functions are not getting any energy supply. As simple as this. If you just grasp this part only, it will serve you so much better than all the rest of the videos on my channel. I know those topics are interesting, and you like to think complicated thoughts and all that, but if you don't grasp this idea, the whole essence of the method, if you don't grasp this part, all the rest is just useless. Like if you're careful enough, you'll notice this idea of reptile brain going like a thin thread through all the videos that I've published so far. It's there. Even if I don't use those words, it's underneath, because that's the foundation for everything I talk about. That's the foundation of every logic that I build, every explanation that I give you. At the core, at the bottom, it has this one simple foundation, that there is reptile brain and there's human brain. You are powerful creative beings when the human brain is operating. But in most cases, the reptile brain is operating and you're not even aware of it. That's the whole idea. To train yourself into this habit of checking on yourself, which brain is operating right now, under effect of which brain are you now, under the effect of a reptile or under the effect of the neocortex, where your higher self is located. So that's the connection between this logic and the exercise of the previous video, where I was giving you this exercise of I am here now, which is all about taking responsibility of the current moment. First, remembering who are you. That's the key. This is the same thing we're doing here now. The logic, under effect of which brain am I now? Who am I now? Am I a reptile or am I neocortex? And that exercise was supposed to train you into reminding yourself you are the human. You are the quantum computer operator. You're not the reptile. And that exercise is to train you, to remind yourself to go into this mode. And it was all about taking responsibility. I am this. I am creating. I am this. I'm upper part of the brain. I'm creating. I'm the consciousness. I'm the soul. I'm creating my reality. And the key element of that exercise is taking responsibility of whatever is happening. And now we will just dissolve one little paradox here, because the whole idea of surrender, the paradox is that surrender is actually equal to taking responsibility. That's what clicked. That's what I was searching for with all my teachers. There's like, can someone explain this to me? Because that was a paradox. Am I supposed to let go or take the responsibility? Let go, take the responsibility. And this understanding of the reptile brain and the neocortex gives the perfect explanation and foundation to do this one step. Who is letting go? Who is supposed to surrender? We need to somehow find a way to convince the reptile to surrender, so that we, the higher part of the brain, the consciousness, can assume control. And that's the whole idea of the method, and the whole idea under each religion is they're giving you little techniques how to trick the reptile into surrender. If you smell some frankincense, if you smell some sage, if you listen to that specific sound, if you do a certain amount of physical exercises, and so the effect that you're going to get slowly, slowly, when it builds up, you'll get as a result a relaxed reptile who finally flips that switch on. And what happens when out of these two functions we have life and death, life and death, life like death and survival, out of these two, on and off, 0, 1, 0, 1. If the reptile switches into the safe mode, it feels peaceful and safe, no threat, no danger to its life, it switches the on button or whatever, flips the on switch or whatever, and all this energy just goes up, runs up to the neocortex. That's all we wanted. If just this part is energized, if just electricity is just supplied to this part of our brain, that's where we get all the inspiration, all the beautiful ideas, solutions, creativity, love, faith, surrender. All of that is up there. That's where all the paradoxes are resolved. Up here, it has the ability to resolve all paradoxes. But the reptile is simply unable to resolve any paradoxes, because the reptile brain works in the digital manner. So it works it functions in the black and white method, let's say, or whatever. So basically, that's how it works. It operates in black and white, 1, 0, two opposites. That's the only way it can operate. Zeros and ones, zeros and ones. It can build you a huge chain of zeros and ones if you want. It can think long chains of thought, but they will all consist of zeros and ones. They will all consist of simple yes or no questions. If, then, if, then, if, then. If, and it can build the whole logic here. And that's the answer to a question of those of you who are asking me about the difference between thinking and overthinking. This building long chains of logic based on zeros and ones, which Reptile does, is overthinking, because it will never come to any creative conclusion. It will never come up with any creative idea, solution for a situation that's just out of this world. It will never come up with that. Why? Because its operation is limited to zeros and ones, and it's operated to, it cannot grasp paradoxes, which is essential to create something new and something magical. So it is limited to breaking every issue down to into twos. So that's what it's good at. It's very good at breaking things down. Breaking things down, then breaking those things down, then finding something else, breaking them down. And that is the ability of a very good politician, for example, or a salesperson, or a journalist, or a very good debater, for example, just to understand that what Reptile does. It's able to explain anything very well. And how do I know it? being on the faculty of international and comparative politics, we were trained as debaters, like a politician, supposed to be really good at debating. And this whole notion of a debate is where you have like there are two sides, and you're given, for example, I'm given like this side to defend, and with a like powerful reptile, I was able to defend like whatever side you give me. I will build such huge foundation and for the logic, I'll break down any issue well enough to prove that like this side is right, for example, whatever side you give me. But if tomorrow you give me a task to defend the opposite side, I will do the same work and I'll win the debate on both sides. And does that mean that like I resolved the problem? No. That's the idea. It's just like, just so you know, if you're like trying to find who is right or who is wrong in politics or in whatever other competitive area, like economics, journalism, or whatever, understanding that when there is agenda, there's like two sides, and my agenda, like I'm given this agenda to defend this part. If my reptile is powerful enough, I will win the debate. If my opponent's reptile is powerful enough, we will have a good battle, and like one of us will win. But understanding that it's never a battle between right and wrong, it's never a battle between good and bad or good and evil. It is always battle of two reptiles. And who will win? The one whose reptile is more powerful. This understanding that there is some kind of war in which good will win, there's no such a notion. The good will not fight. The ones who are fighting are two evils, let's say two reptiles, and the bigger evil will win. And he'll be called good. The other one will be called evil. So this ability to reconcile this notion of zeros and ones on the reptile level, good and bad, good and bad. Reptile does work in categories of black and white, good and bad, 1 and 0. That's how it works. That's how it operates. It cannot get out of the structure of ones and zeros. And it is weird to expect a good solution to come out of a struggle in which reptile is participating. There is like, the peace cannot come out of war. Somebody will have to lose. One will win. There's always will be a victim in this kind of logic. So whatever logic you're building while you're in the sense, in the state of the reptile brain, under the effect of reptile brain, whatever logic you're building, no matter how logical, how beautiful, and how amazing it might sound, a lot of you are writing me letters, like letters and letters, but the sense, I like, once I just smell that it's written under the effect of the reptile brain, it's pointless to even read. Because like you can build, I also can build, like being trained to be a politician, like I know how to build structures which sound so amazingly logical and beautiful, and it's hard to disagree because that's just a sign of a very powerful reptile. It can prove anything. But if tomorrow you give me a task to prove the opposite side right, I will do the same good job proving that left is right and right is left tomorrow. So just the beauty of the logic and the complexity of explanation does not mean that it comes from some higher mind. The idea is that a reptile can think long thoughts, but it will never give resolution. It can never give peace. And you know when you are in a state of, like, if you're thinking but you're agitated, if you're thinking and you're in sense that you need to prove something to some, you have an agenda, you're like against that person or against that whatever party or against whatever, you have agenda, you know that if you have an agenda, you're in this mode. Whatever thoughts you're coming up with when you have an agenda, you are working from your reptile brain. So that's the answer to those who want to understand difference between thinking and overthinking. Overthinking is the function of the reptile. No matter how long and how beautiful your messages are, if you're agitated when you write them, if you have an agenda, something to prove, it's not gonna reconcile any paradoxes or resolve any issues. So ability to recognize that you are under the effect of the reptile and consciously shift from reptile to human brain, that's the notion of surrender. Surrender, like as if we have to convince the reptile to surrender as if it's somebody else. But here the key is the reptile is you. It is your brain. It's not somebody else. It's not some evil little snake sitting like who is separate. It's you. It's you. It's your survival instinct. So it is task for you to surrender in the moment when you are fully associated with the reptile, when you fully associate yourself with that ego or with that identity or with that agenda, when you feel like it's your agenda, it's your emotion, it's your problem to solve, that's when you're a reptile. And that's when you need to surrender, you, the reptile. You need to surrender. But how do we do it? In order to explain this, I'll give a little kind of analogy, which usually helps to understand how this works, how to use it. So let's imagine, for example, a room or like, let's say, a big kitchen where you have a task to bake this beautiful cake. You as an adult, you know how to bake this cake, but within this kitchen, you are locked with other two more people here. There is a little baby, 1.5 years old, sleeping in the corner. And there is also a 5-year-old child with you in this kitchen. And you, all three of you, as a team, you have a task to bake a cake. Now, you know how to do it. And these two, they have their own agenda. That one is like thirsty, cold, dry, hot, hungry, or whatever. The 5-year-old wants to play, wants attention, and wants to spend good time with you. So this is the logic of the reptile. 1.5 year old is the time by which this brain is like the formation, let's say, of this brain is pretty much done by the age of 1.5 years old. By age of 5, the limbic system is formed. That's why the second one The second child is 5 year old, and that 5 year old person is with you. Never growing child is with you. That baby, 1.5 years old, 5 year old child, and then you, the adult. All three in this kitchen. And if you want to bake the cake, and you suddenly you see that one is screaming, yelling, I don't know, screaming, crying for something, like you have to check on the baby. Maybe it's wet, maybe hungry, maybe you need to check all parameters, like not too hot, not too tight, not too dry. Checking on that one. Then the second one is starting to jump around, throw around all your sugar, eggs, all whatever, like creating mess in the kitchen, playing and having fun. You need to organize this whole mess in order to still achieve your goal, which is cake. Like an effective adult will find a way to deal with the needs of the baby, of the reptile first. The baby needs to be fed, dried, well taken care of, and put to sleep. Now we have the baby sleeping. Now we take the 5 year old and we find a game within this cooking process which will keep the child busy and interested. So like a good babysitter will be able to actually like come up with some game and get the child involved in it for a length of the project that you're supposed to be performing. So if you can organize the process this way, first take care of put the baby to sleep, then give a child something to play with, and then you can calmly bake your cake. That's what we are going for. That's the result that we want to achieve. What happens if we ignore presence of these two in the kitchen and we try to just like, I'll just bake. That one is yelling, screaming like crazy. The child is like running wild and you're still trying to bake something. You'll get so overwhelmed, you'll get so stressed, you'll make some mistakes, it will not come out the way you want. So you decide, okay, I know what to do. I'll tie that one, lock it so that it's cannot disturb me. The 5 year old, I'll just tie him or her up and just put something in his mouth so cannot complain and disturb me. And I'll just spend like these, 3 hours baking. Just consider, you baked it and the cake is ready, beautiful. What you do, you untie this 5 year old. Say like, okay, come, let's have this tea party, enjoy the cake. And you can probably predict the tea party is not going to happen. The first thing, like when you untie that 5 year old, the first thing that it's going to do, it's going to run to your cake and it's just going to smash it and destroy. And then it's going to get hysterical for like to make you pay for all this time that it was tied. Then you go check, okay, let's see what happened to the reptile, to the baby. Half dead, maybe. Now you have to go take him to the hospital and spend all the rest of your time and money fixing the issues like of nearly dead baby. So this idea of trying to, when you're in life, you're trying to achieve a goal without considering interests of this kindergarten that you have within. Like if you try to achieve something without actually taking care of like interests of these two, your project is going to be destroyed at the end anyway. It's going to be sabotaged in certain way. All the results of the business or relationship that you build, if without the agreement of these two, if you build any like business relationship or anything on which these two are not in, they will later come and destroy. It's for those who wonder about what is self-sabotage and why am I creating something and then destroying. Why am I doing like making this millions and then becoming bankrupt? And that's the idea of you trying to live your life without considering interests of these two parts. And they do have power. The moment when you're done baking your cake, done creating your beautiful relationship, they'll be like, okay, you're done? Okay, now we come out. And they will come and they'll destroy everything you created without their intent, without their content for it. So that logic of three people in the room is what we need to understand in order to get the point of surrender. Surrender, how it can be equal to taking responsibility. Exactly on this example, we take you as an adult in this room of three. You are the one who is supposed to take responsibility. In a moment of stress, that one is crying, this one is jumping around. You are supposed to assume responsibility for this mess because it's you. Ignoring this mess is gonna lead you to disappointment anyway. Anything you create without considering their interests is going to be wasted and destroyed later afterwards anyway. So what's the point? So assuming responsibility for these two, making sure one is calm, peaceful, safe, healthy, fed, dried, whatever. The other one entertained. 5-year-old just wants to play most of the time. When these two are satisfied and you still have any powers left, then you can try achieving your goals or whatever. If you try to squeeze time and do it faster before they're ready, you can just be sure it's going to be a waste of time anyway. They'll destroy it later. So, what's the point to even make a cake? What's the point to even build that relationship? What's the point to even build that business and make that money if at the end you know that just the moment you build it, these two will destroy it anyway? What's the purpose to even do it then? Maybe to focus just on making these two feel good. Sometimes this might take years. If you've been torturing them, kept them tied for 20 years or 40 years or 60, some of you, maybe it will take some time for them to get satisfied enough to allow you to do your thing, bake your cakes. So that logic of taking responsibility of this kindergarten and surrender, that it's taking responsibility and surrender is the same thing, connecting us to the previous exercise in the previous video about the I am here now, where you first decide who are you, the reptile or the conscious being. You decide, you remind yourself, I am this. If I am this, then I take responsibility. And that taking responsibility is the step that is actually equal to surrender. Because like I break you down in 3 people in the room, right? But you understand that all 3 is you. The adult and the baby and the child. And when you assume responsibility for this whole zoo, the part that needs care and protection and safety the most has the chance to relax. So that's the idea. The reptile has a chance to relax and open the switch and let the electricity run to support higher goals and functions. So the idea of surrender is for you, the reptile, to surrender, knowing that you are just not smart enough when you are reptile. Even if it seems to you that you're smart, even if you're coming up with those logical explanations, and if you're coming up with that very logical chain of events which is going to take place if you don't do this thing, because life is dangerous and there are so many, whatever you come up with is gonna be primitive and average, and it will be a copy paste of something that you've seen before, because that's the logic of the digital system. That's the logic of the matrix. That's how matrix is constructed by many people who choose to operate on the digital level, copying pasting elements from each other and recombining these copy paste elements, and considering that their own idea or creation, which in fact is just a copy paste of one reptile from other reptiles. And the weird part about this interaction of reptile and the cortex is that when the reptile is fully in control, it's actually using your cognitive functions. It's using the neocortex as its slave. With this request, you are a reptile, I'm reptile, I see there's danger, and I tell my cortex, give me proof, any possible proof that this situation can be dangerous for us. The reptile is giving order to the cortex to give proof to a certain agenda that reptile came up with. And yes, the brain will come up with proof that's why your logic sounds really beautiful. That's why when you write me these long letters, you're like, oh, I'm such a guy, write so much. Yeah, the problem that you're writing, that's beautiful, but the idea is that you're writing guided by the reptile brain, using the logic of your higher cognitive functions, and using this human brain as a slave. That's the problem. That's the overthinking. And when your logic seems so beautiful, you want to share it with all the world because it's so beautiful, but it's so beautiful, it's so logical. But the problem is not getting resolved. You are just explaining why problem is a problem. That's pretty much what politicians do. They, with their being guided by the reptile brain, being in a state of war with a party or with the opponent or debate partner, they are in state of danger, threat. They give order to the cortex, give me proof that this guy is threat, or that country is threat, or that political party is threat, or that possible situation is threat. And using this whole power as a slave to reptile. That's sad. So, to make a conclusion, so that's the difference between the digital mind and the quantum mind. What you're choosing to create your reality with this mediocre capacity of a digital mind, you will be just taking elements from other creations of other digital minds, of other reptiles, copy paste, building, and you can create a religion if you want, and you can create a political party or whatever else you can create. You can create amazing structures, all within the matrix. The idea is that they will just be very many different combinations of building blocks of zeros and ones copied from your previous experiences, recombinated with everything you've ever seen in life, in movies, in your fantasies, in your dreams, recombinating digital creation. Or surrender this capacity for recombinating and let the energy run to the cortex, to the quantum computer, which is able to think in the categories of paradoxes. It's able to resolve. The whole idea of quantum computer is based on the quantum logic of matter being able to be a particle and a wave at the same time. So the whole logic of a quantum computer is a paradox itself. But it needs very, it's like powerful, it's very powerful compared to simple digital one. It can create amazing things, but it works only at very perfect conditions. And it needs a lot of supply. Energy supply should be good, stable, and conditions should be perfect. And that's the logic of the method, to learn, to train yourself, to create a habit of checking, are you under effect of reptile or not? If you're under effect of reptile, switch it off, switch it into the safe mode. How? Like by using all the techniques I'm sharing here. The whole idea is to be able to know when you are a reptile, when you are associating with an agenda of a reptilian mind, when you're thinking out of the fear-based mentality, seeing something or someone as a threat, you are mediocre, limited creator. Anything you create from this state is gonna be average. So that was I hope I answered the question of those who were wondering about this whole idea of surrender. How do we surrender? Should I formulate it again? Surrender, the moment of stress, when you're angry, when you're dealing with some real circumstances, stressful situation, where you feel tension, where you feel like stress, anger, whatever other uncomfortable emotion. In that moment, all you need to do is to train yourself to just remember this logic of reptile brain. If you can just remember that in that moment, that's going to be your way out. That's going to be your way out of every conflict, every circumstance or uncomfortable emotion. If you can just understand, remind yourself, train yourself into checking, reminding, am I being a reptile now? Am I being a reptile now? That's not effective. Just knowing that is enough to give you that open road to progress that you're searching for. In a moment of stress, remembering that you're a reptile and reminding yourself that anything you try to do or think while you're under effect of reptile is gonna be stupid and pointless and might seem logical, a result will be mediocre, survival based. And that's not who you are. Just creating a habit of reminding yourself, catching yourself. Are you in a reptile mode? If you are, doing anything, everything that you can to calm the reptile down. If in that kitchen the reptile is crying, stressed, angry, agitated about anything, Do not try to bake any cakes. Do not try to leave or do anything else. The reptile is you. You have to first make sure the body is comfortable, not too cold, not too hot, not too hungry, not too. Check all parameters and calm down the baby. Calm down the baby. Then you can even, like, if you've no one is there to calm you down, you can talk to the baby. Like the reptile doesn't really care whose voice is telling, giving the safety signal. You can use your voice to tell the reptile, you're safe, baby, you're safe, 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 you're safe. That dialogue is real for the reptile. Reptile doesn't really know who is calming it down. It doesn't really know if it's your parent or your loved one or God, or it just needs to hear that it's safe. When you calm down the reptile, give it whatever it needs, food, water, safety, warmth. When it's calm and you check on the child is still agitated, uncomfortable, running around the kitchen trying to get your attention. You take the child and you give it a very, very, very important task. We're going to play a very important game with you. And that game is going to be counting breaths. You're going to count breath. It's a very important task. You're like grown up, like adult. I give you this task. Like imagine if you're baking that cake and you give the kid just this task to pour water from one cup to another. As long as the kid considers this important game, like a game, it should be interesting enough for the kid to play it. That's what you do in the moment of stress. First, calm down the baby. Then tell the kid, dear, that he's loved. You're a good kid. Like you're a good girl, good boy, good girl, good boy. You're safe, good girl. Like you're talking to the two. And then you give, let's play this game. We're gonna count all the breaths. In, this one in, this one out. In, out. Or inhale, exhale. Inhale, like it's a fun game for the child. The idea is like there are so many techniques how to do it, but I'm explaining you the logic of how it's supposed to work. Why breathing is supposed to calm you down. First you calm down the reptile, then to the child you give a very, very important task to focus on the breath. Breath in, breath out. Breath in, don't look somewhere else, focus on the game. In, out. In, fun game, huh? Out. Little more we'll play, then we'll think about, like you want to try thinking, oh, there's this problem, I want to solve that, solve this. Okay, yeah, just play this game, just 5 more minutes. In, fun game, out. In, out. In, out. Good girl, such a good girl. That logic of calming the baby, keeping the 5-year-old occupied and entertained is what opens the gate, the switch to the electrical signal to come to the neocortex, where you once again remember who you are and what was your purpose. So I hope I explained it and you'll be able to use surrender as a tool. I hope, and I'm going through all the things in my mind. I hope that was enough. If still not clear enough, please ask me questions. I'll try to explain better. See you later.